a lot of other artists are like content creators, and they're all trying to figure out what type of content they want to create. And people exactly like you and me are trying to create content or be creators, or they want to be VTubers, or they want to do like the thing where they show off time lapses of their videos and talk over it. But they don't
Right.
exactly like, we've sort of done all those steps to
Yeah,
some
pretty
extent.
much. Yeah.
And I think it's a good idea that we go over those. Not only because it'll tell a bit of our story and also like tell our viewers what we've been doing, what we do.
Hmm.
But yeah, it'll just like sort everything. It'll just like, yeah, it'll
Yeah, sure. I
tell.
mean, I think it's a pretty good set of guidelines. Do you want to go first or?
Um, it's probably a good idea that I go first because I was the one sort of creating artwork, just trying to like become a digital artist online up
Right.
until like a few years ago when I actually found you through Ace's Discord.
Yeah, it's
And
funny 'cause I actually remember when you saw that one episode of Rick and Morty. It kind of like it kind of like gave you some things to think about, and I feel like that was a point where you started kind of doing similar things in terms of your focus, like me.
yeah, yeah. Oh, what episode was that?
Not this past season, the season before, because we're on what, 6 seasons now, I think.
Oh,
It
you were
was
talking
these,
about you're talking about the finale. The finale with
yeah,
season
yeah,
5?
yeah, when Mr. Poopy Butthole talked about like, you kind of gotta like make every moment count. Don't know when it's gonna be your last. What do you want to accomplish? Like all those really like deeper philosophical
Mm.
questions as to like where are you going?
It's funny, right? Because like I get that a lot. I really resonate with that message because it's something that is like the most important factor of Tokyo Revengers, which
Mm.
obviously I'm a huge fan of.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
the fact that I forgot it on my 3x3 when we were sharing each other our sort of anime 3x3s is
Hmm.
I can't believe that I actually forgot it. But yeah,
No, I mean, yeah, I mean, I feel that as far as it goes, like there's a few ones that I've looked at too, and like, how did I not mention this? It's easy to focus sometimes on the entertaining ones rather than the more the ones that were influential to you.
yeah, yeah. And about this time, you had already sort of jumped between from doing commissions
Yeah.
to doing just Patreon stuff, and you weren't taking like any commissions at the time.
Yeah, at least a good it was almost a full year. It was like 8 to 9 months.
Yeah,
I think it was last year actually. Yeah, it was like a good like 8 or 9 months that I just dedicated to purely Patreon content because I got very sick of being typecasted as one type of artist and a fandom artist, no less. Like I had more I wanted to do, and I began to realize that not only was it killing my motivational drive, it was making me a bad artist, and I was developing bad habits as a result.
right. And yeah, and this is also about the time that I think we had stopped doing the live streaming together, or we were still doing it, but we had decided that it wasn't really growing our platform, and because of Twitch's guidelines, we couldn't do anything that was not safe for work, which is a big chunk of your content, and now a
Yes,
big chunk of my own content.
yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, sex definitely sells, and I will also admit, I just enjoy drawing it. I mean, I like drawing girls. It's probably one of my favorite things to draw. So,
Mm, mm. Yeah, yeah, and it's weird, right? Like that could have worked for us if
mhm.
we had decided, like, I don't know, to just draw safe work stuff, or maybe if we even committed more time to Picasso. But
Yeah,
there were so many problems with the fact that you and I live in completely different countries. Obviously,
yeah,
you're in America, I'm in New Zealand, and
yeah.
every time we tried to like set it up, it was like where I wanted to start at, I think it was 3 your guys' time, or maybe
Hmm.
7 your guys' time.
Yeah, yeah.
And you wanted to start at around 3 o'clock my time, and
Hmm.
the difference in time is almost like 4 hours, which
Yeah,
means
and it
that I
and it
would
makes a big
be,
difference with the demographic too that you get.
yeah, yeah. But it was like this, you could see that a lot more people were coming on after this point in time,
Yeah.
and like I just it wasn't ripe because obviously my partner still interacts in the same place that I do. Like they got on at work and they come back
Hmm.
halfway through the stream
Yeah.
by that point, and then it's like, oh well, you know, by that point
Hmm.
when life gets in the way after that, and while
Yeah, it
it's
starts to
fine in
become
your
a
end,
it starts to become a major inconvenience.
yeah, yeah. Um, but yeah, those are like ultimately the deciding factors of why we don't live stream.
Yeah,
And
I mean, I'll say I probably would be more willing to do it again at some point, but like it would be based on two factors. One, how many how many more people are like already looking at us that it makes it worth it to dedicate the time to a live audience for at least a few hours,
yeah,
at least a couple times a week, if not maybe like even a day, depending on the viewership. And then there's also just the factor of like, it's something that like while we are very much we do everything we do is primarily not only partnership but also in the sense of boosting each other. It would almost be more worth it like if we did stream again, if we streamed at different times, because odds are is like it probably would end up just resulting in this cyclical thing of like, kind of like reverse and inverse rating each other due to the times that we would start.
yeah,
So like,
yeah,
it's more beneficial even having that separate. And then like we both, due to the vast time zone difference, we would get kind of both ends of the planet. You get the varying demographics. So it's kind of fine that it works out that way. And that's why we record this, because, yeah, we can record a bunch of these and it doesn't get in the way, and it's still a way to grow your platform.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's interesting, right? If I had to take away anything from doing live streaming like that, or if I had something to like share with other people that on whether or not they can do it or not, if they're doing it like how we're doing it with
Mm,
just friends, because you can do it on your own, right?
yeah.
If you really want to create content, it's obviously a lot more motivating to do it with other people because then you just have people that like are looking out for your productivity because
Yeah.
you need to work as a team. And
Hmm.
if there was something that I learned from like doing all that, it's like, yeah, like if you're going to do it, be realistic about what your limitations are, because that we did
Yeah.
not we didn't have a good idea of our limitations until we actually started doing it with each other. um and yeah, time constraints are a big one. Like, yeah, life just gets in the way.
Yeah, and I'll say like yeah, when I stream, from the crowd I'm used to, and even just like other streamers, because I more recently too have started watching even some bigger streamers.
Yeah.
There's been some days where like, yeah, maybe I felt a little bit, mentally down, and I still wanted a voice around, but I wasn't prepared to actively socialize. Sometimes I'd go into a bigger streamer's stream on Twitch and I'd put them on in the background, and yeah, like a little bit of that parasocial comfort, I guess.
Mm.
But the thing is being able to like, watch them and see them, the time frame that people stream for, whether you're talking about these big streamers or the smaller streamers that I know personally, 3 hours is a drop in the bucket of your time for a stream. Like I've learned that like if it's not like a little more than 3 hours on a stream, you're probably not gonna, one, be that entertaining, and two, you're not giving yourself enough time for more people to come in and out, and thus your
Yeah.
numbers are going to stay low because when you're streaming, you really see that like in real time turnover that like you might expect once a month from say like your Patreon.
Yeah.
But the stream, you see that in real time. It's like, oh, look at all these numbers, and then like 2 hours later, oh well, look, half of them are gone.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So that was another factor I think with us too, because like I mean, hell,
We
I
went
mean,
we went originally from 10 or 11 my time, usually 11 my time to about 5. So it was a we did about 5 to 6 hours worth of streaming. Um
some days, yeah, but we didn't do that consistently. So
we didn't do it consistently, but the majority of the days that we did were between those 2 points.
mm,
Um and it was fine. I definitely think we should have done it for longer, but we also couldn't do it for longer. Um,
yeah, like for me, I find starting later in the day is easier because like whenever I've considered, I mean, aside from my health issues, why it's harder for me to start things earlier in the day,
mm,
I've often found that like when I do start things later in the evening, like let's say like 5 or 6 p.m. on, hell, more realistically, actually, even like 7, 8 p.m. on, sometimes I might start like I've seen people come around at like 10 p.m. and have it start filling in them because I even know a lot of people, and you know them too, like who they have very late work schedules. So they're not around during the day. And sometimes even when randos are looking for smaller streams, sometimes they're looking for a stream that's small but also not empty.
yeah,
And having those numbers in there of the people you already know who consistently watch you adds to getting more of those numbers. Like I would say like if I actually start dedicating time to streaming again, maybe like once I actually have my model finished, I probably would stream pretty late night. Like I probably would stream like maybe about like 10 p.m. or later. And for me, it's also easier because like yeah, I get what you're saying with life getting in the way. In my case, it's health getting in the way.
yeah,
Because like I'm single now. I do live with my folks. My parents are very respective of my time. They know what I'm doing with my work and I'm building my brand and all that stuff and everything. So I don't really have any interruptions if I just let people know I can't have any interruptions. So I definitely have the time. I just need the numbers. I need the eyes. Like that I feel like that's an issue after a while is like just figuring out how do you get more eyes on you. And
yeah,
you kind of start scrounging in the dirt thinking of different ways to get attention.
yeah, and it's very real. That I think when you start like creating content, the the idea that you're doing this and you want people to notice you,
Yeah.
it's very real. You don't actually sort of get it until you're doing it, and then when you're doing it, it's strange. It's very
Yeah.
strange.
It's exhausting too.
Yeah, yeah, because it's like you begin like it's and I think it happens to everyone that starts creating content. Like if it's even worth like continuing if you're only getting like you know one person drop in or another person drop in and you're not getting that attention, that ripe attention that you need in order to actually start creating content, because
Well, you know,
otherwise it's
I think that's the part when people start placating themselves and start saying, "Well, do you enjoy it? Are you
yeah,
just doing it for the fun and like hoping that it gets somewhere?" But then like I'm someone who looks at it from the perspective of, yeah, you know what, I do enjoy it, and I do it partially for fun, but I would be absolutely lying if I said this wasn't majorly because I'm trying to fucking pay my bills. Like
yeah, yeah,
I I am not interested in doing this just for fun. I would flat out tell anyone if you have a normal, reasonable income, a 9 to 5, even stuff like that, do this on the side and see where it goes. If you're someone like me and you've kind of are relying on this because you don't really have any other options and you're too unhealthy to even make that work or something like that, or you have other complications going on, it's going to be hell. You're going to be dedicating majority of your time to this, so you better damn well enjoy it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And like it's not a situation where it's like, oh, I struggle with mental illness, which is a very big case for a lot of people. But in your
Yeah.
case, you're suffering from very, very bad physical conditions that
Yeah.
keep you
Yeah.
from doing anything outside of this.
Yeah, fucked up from the eyeballs down. So like, yeah, like the bottom line is like, yeah, like I mean, it does help that I enjoy what I do, but like, yeah, I mean, it definitely yeah, you feel the stress of that, you feel the pressure, the anxiety, and that has its pros and cons too. I find that when I'm under pressure, I work better, I work faster, but at the same time, yeah, if you apply too much pressure, eventually you crack.
Yeah, yeah. It's it's cool that we're able to do this now, rather
Mm,
than what we've been doing up until now. Because like obviously the other things was the Patreon,
yeah.
and we're still doing that. Like we're
Yeah,
still both
I mean,
trying to
I
grow.
think I think that's a major focus of ours. I mean, I think at the end of the day, like I mean, I think we're more at the end of the day, it's more the type. It's like there are things that we're good at. There's things we're focusing on, but we're also not opposed to like another option, such as say something like this, actually being beneficial. And I think that's also important to keep an eye on if you're looking to do this type of stuff. It's like they say, have multiple streams of income. Just give yourself multiple options because if any of the things you're doing are things you like, if one of them does well, you won't hate yourself when you have to commit to it.
And also, like, I would not be opposed. Like, I did a lot of what I was doing on Patreon while I was working. And I was just working like 3 days a week. At
Right.
like,
Part-time job.
yeah, just at the mill. And it's easier than you think to do a job and work on it when you're doing the right things to motivate yourself.
Hmm.
And a big part of that was the streaming together at the time, which was one of the big pros about sort of doing it the way we're doing it. Because, like you said, you can't just do it for fun. And a lot of what we were doing wasn't because we found it fun, wasn't because we found live streaming fun, or doing everything that we were doing at the time, like artwork and commissions, and which is just more artwork, and talking to each
Hmm.
other, and and hanging out with friends. But a lot of this was because it took things that we were already doing every day in order to progress as artists and making it into a system which you're doing everything that you're doing already, but
Yeah.
you're trying to create content from it. You're trying to do something from it. And that's ultimately how we got to this step, because we talk every day. We don't have to think about live streaming, because we don't naturally live stream while we draw or do anything. We've done it before, but it's not like
It's definitely a little more forced than this. I
yes.
agree with you because I would say live streaming was actually a skill I had to acquire, whereas like conversation and you know intellectual pursuits, that's a passion. That's something that I care about, and I value not only my words, but I value other people's words, and that's why this works out well. Because like when it came to live streaming, like I did it 4 days a week for like a year back in like 2020, and dear God, like never mind the fact that my fatigue is awful from from my health issues and my shit. The thing is that even if you are a healthy person,
Yeah.
fatigue is a real factor. Whether you're talking about, like the fatigue of streaming or the fatigue of having a part-time job or the fatigue, yeah, of everyday life happening while you're trying to get your shit done. That's another big factor too, because like I worked in retail for like 4 years, and I was a manager, and I can count the amount of drawings I did in those 4 years during that time because it just beat me
On one
down. And
hand.
on top, yeah, yeah, literally.
Yeah.
It just beat me down so much emotionally, mentally, physically, and it became so easy to just play video games and try and relax. But the fact of the matter is that like, yeah, there were some nights I did force myself to draw because I wanted to, but when sometimes too, when you're so damned fatigued, it does get in your way a bit. I do agree with you. Yes, motivation's a big factor, but it's like fatigue levels will definitely make or break a person's motivation,
Yeah.
regardless of whether that's what they really want or not. Sometimes it just fucking breaks you down. And I think if that's the case, that's when you need to start questioning, am I happy with the way my life currently is? And if not, what are my options that I could take that don't compromise my ability to put food on the table and simultaneously compromise something that I actually enjoy doing on the side that could at the very least be a side hustle and still be fun.
Yeah. Another one that's sort of in both of our skill sets, that we we've tried doing, and it's good to mention because we were both doing this a lot more than we do right now. And that's the sort of pixel art and the sprite
Hmm.
content that we were both making. You were doing it
Right.
through most of your commissions because you know that's how a lot of people know you. Um,
Unfortunately, that was the case. Thankfully, that's gotten better.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And now you're in a position where you've sort of escaped it because again, you didn't want to be typecast.
Yeah,
Um, and
definitely.
whereas I don't have um the same affiliation that you do, and so I can continue to do a little bit of sprites here and there and a little bit of pixel art while
Well, I see
also creating content.
the thing is though is I still do that. It's just because like obviously like you and me both have come from more the Sonic sprite side of things.
Yeah,
Um, as time went on, I definitely still had a love of pixel art, and I still created like as far as like Patreon content goes, like my tier 3 still is pixel art. It's just now it's more eclectic stuff. Like I mean, I've done quite a lot of Pokemon sprites from scratch. I did a few what you call it let's call it I guess maybe like it kind of has a little bit of like a Japanese pixel art gotcha vibe when
yeah,
I've done some like waifu girls here and there. I don't even know what the aesthetic would be called, but I've done stuff like that, like because I still love pixels. Like I just love art. It's just the content that I create. I never want to be tied down to one specific thing. Like I understand that people will always view you in one way or another, and the thing that I don't mind being viewed at is like say an anime artist and a furry artist. I don't mind being viewed as that. When I show people that I do sprites or pixel art, they're usually kind of surprised now because now it's the newer people who didn't know
yeah,
that's where I came from. And excuse me, I got such a frog in my throat. But the thing is, like, there are people who obviously didn't know that, and now when they see some of those sprites, they're like, "Oh, that's really cool that you can do that as well." And like, I just like making use of not only my skill sets, but I like creating a diverse array of content because like even like coming from Sonic originally, I mean, it's not that I don't wouldn't mind drawing something Sonic occasionally. It's just the problem is that yeah, when people do typecast you and people know you came from one thing, the minute you do a couple of those things as like a commission or something, it's floodgates. And
yeah,
then it doesn't stop. And then it's easy to just take the money. But then that brings up all the same issues that we discussed earlier. And
yeah, exactly.
so like I'd say the sprite stuff is something that like, you know, I think if you're a gamer and you like indie games or retro games, you'll associate it with that first and foremost. I think it's purely just the community that we came from that has that specific association to sprite sheets.
Which I think is a really good time to sort of bring up something that is mostly going to address all of your fans that exist from before then, and get something big out of the way for the people that don't who see this, who don't know what's been going on, that where you intend to go and what's happening to the stuff that you used to do
Mhm.
that is not going anywhere
Yeah, stuff that's better laid to rest.
because it's going to because it also marks a lot of it's also on the subject of where we come from. Anyways, so the your old content,
Yeah.
you created a very long time ago an animated series using video game sprites,
Yep.
and it was quite popular back in those days.
Yeah, that's true.
And the content now that is sort of created has, I guess the best word is going to be evolved.
Yeah, I've definitely changed quite a lot
Yeah,
from not only the content I made, but even the person I was.
yeah. Meanwhile, the people that do the same type of content as you used to do before, they've it's still the same thing. It's definitely different to what it was back then,
Right.
but it's got its own.
It's more polished now is what it is.
It yeah
It's cleaner, it's more polished, it's smoother, it's faster, it's younger, it's healthier, it's edgier, it's everything that it once was, just better. Like
yeah
that's all it is, right? Like, but yeah, like as far as like the medium goes, yes, it has largely remained unevolved. It got a new haircut.
yeah. Because and a lot of people still create Flash content, um, just in general, even though it's long dead.
Yeah, pretty much.
Um, but yeah, and so I think it's a good idea that we talk about exactly just for the fans that know where Shad's coming from. The series itself was called Sonic Dawning of Darkness.
Yeah,
It
I didn't have Sonic labeled in the
that
title,
well,
which
yeah,
is also partly,
sorry.
yeah, that's also partially why for a long time people didn't know what it was until they looked into it more. But that was my intent because I didn't want to have it titled down to just one thing. Because it was essentially, if you get down to it, it was an edgy Sonic and Mario crossover with
Yeah,
like a lot of mythological and religious connotations to the plot.
yeah, and and its main protagonist was Shadow the Hedgehog because
Yeah,
and it really is just a relic of the times because that
yeah, very
was
much so.
during Shadow's like big momentous 2000s period.
Yeah, it was definitely what I'll call his edgy trauma arc,
Mm.
which, as far as I'm concerned, is still the better Shadow if I'm going to address Sonic content at all.
Yeah,
But yeah, like I agree. It most definitely was a product of the culture at the time.
but it's 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 safe to say that as far as the content that you made back then, it's 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 no longer a thing that you're working on at all, right?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm gonna actively address this, bottom line, like I have addressed this with a lot of different people.
Hmm.
Hell, it was literally just a few days ago. Somebody on Newgrounds DM'd me, who was an old fan of mine, and said, "Hey, is DoD ever getting a reboot?" And I told him straight out, and I'll say the same thing that I've said to multiple other people who wanted it. I was planning on rebooting it as a comic. I did not wish to sprite animate anymore. It was way too tedious and time consuming to want to do it for very little reward. The passion for it had very much died and weakened. I'm still flattered and happy to this day that people remember it and even remember me. I feel like the people who were fans of it have started to realize more now that I've moved past it. So those are fans I thank for being there with me at the beginning and are still with me now, even though I have changed and moved on. But as far as the people who don't know, it's like, yeah, if more people, and I said this multiple times, had been willing to sign up to my Patreon and support the production of that specific comic, I probably would have given it more time. As a result, whether it's because people didn't want to, people didn't have the financial resources to support it, or were just disappointed that it was not going to be an animated series, because there were some people
Yeah,
who were
yeah.
disappointed about that. The bottom line is this: to close up DoD. Because as I said, I don't intend to actually animate it again. It's
No.
possible somewhere down the line that friends of mine will pick up the mantle once I'm done redesigning some of the last few drawings of it. But this is the only way I really draw Sonic. Because in my way, it's not only kind of fun, but it's and some extra content on my Patreon, which is partly to do with character designing, whether it's DoD or my other light novel stories like Retrograde, Pay Your Respects, etc. It's aside from it being more content, it's also my way of providing some closure. It's some people did know that I posted some synopses of the episodes and how the series would conclude. There are some details that were not provided to the public at the time, though, and some things that got changed. So if it ever did get animated, whatever you read, still basically the same, but it would get adjusted. All I can say is that the main goal is just finish redesigning the last few characters. I've made a lot of progress with that already. I'm probably about a third or halfway done
Yeah.
redesigning old characters or old forms, and some of them are not even redesigned. Some of them are literally at this point just drawing them, and now they're going to be higher res because there's details I couldn't include on the sprites at the time due to even my something as simple as my limited skill set at the period of time. Like the quality in art and things I can produce now certainly are better than what I could do then. So
Yeah.
that's another aspect of it as well. It just comes down to, yeah, I would like to close that chapter. And yeah, if you want to see it beforehand, there's a Patreon. If not, at some point, some of these things will be released publicly anyway, just because. And there are people who are fans of it. There's people who still love the Chaos Beast. There's people who still love the Hell Shadow forms, the Karma Sonic forms, all these other things I did. Like there's still love of it, and you know what? I still appreciate that. It is still a nice nostalgic feeling to know that there are people who still love and enjoy this. It's just, if you did like DoD, I will only say one thing. Stick with me, because DoD was good not because of its animation, realistically speaking. It was good because of its story. And one thing I am very proud of with myself is my ability to tell well-written stories.
Yeah.
And so I would say if you liked that and you want more of similar stuff from me, yeah, either follow my work, follow me on social media, or yeah, become a patron, because you'll still get the same type of quality and stories you liked. It's just I've moved on because there's only so long any one person can stay glued to a specific fandom or a specific subject matter before it becomes completely stale to them as an artist.
Insert 700 plugs here. Go subscribe.
Don't worry. At this moment, too, we will also edit in that little fucking green screen like, comment, subscribe notification at the bottom, just to further show. We know why we're here. We know why we're here.
Yeah, surely that graphic is somewhere on YouTube that we can just like.
I downloaded it. I have it.
Oh, you've got
it, dude. I'm all set.
I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked.
I will take this file and edit it and put in the fucking title card and that thing if you want, or I'll just send them to you. But either way, I've got everything we need.
Yeah. So yeah, the cool thing though, right, is that or at least the cool thing for me is that I'm here right now because I was a fan. And while we didn't have contact for like 10 plus years, because I only really knew you as a fan of your content.
True.
It's interesting, right? Because I can trace where I started as an artist all the way back to then, and probably a little bit before, because I already was an artist, obviously. But like the fact that I'm so ingrained in the Sonic community now is a big factor as to just everything, the design of my character. Because when we eventually pick up VTubing, I will probably leave Jinta's design behind. I'll probably go to using just a more furry design. Because I've played around with furry designs in the past. I would
Mhm.
like to be able to just sort of transition later on, but this is the most recognizable version of who I am. A lot of people know Jinta. A lot of
True.
and his design has gone from just something that I did as a kid to something that I think is a very unique and interesting character design that gets a lot of eyes.
Yeah, something that you feel you can make iconic. It's like similarly how I feel Shade at this point.
Yeah. And that is a boast that people can criticize.
Retweeted by Humblebrag.
No,
Ugh.
no, but here's the thing, right? You can criticize it because, and just after I sort of started getting some traction, started getting some fans,
Mm.
you and I both noticed that there are a lot of Sonic fan characters that are blue wolves.
True.
And
True.
so it's like, well, okay, is do I does the fact that I say it just mean nothing? Because like I'm saying that it's unique and interesting, but there's so many other character designs that are very similar to my own. But at the same time, do you remember that? Do you remember that incident with one of
With,
our
with- oh, oh
friends?
oh, yeah, where he got the commission and the artist somehow confused his character for yours, but he drew our friend's character with your character's arm.
Yeah, yeah, and he drew the robot arm. So I think even that is just a good example, and it's one example, but it's a good example of what I think Jinta does differently as a character design that makes him so appealing. And I
Yeah,
truly
the arm,
think,
definitely.
yeah, and I truly think that a lot of the fans that I have today do just really like Jinta. Um,
Yeah, I agree.
and not and yeah, like I even still get a lot of DMs from a lot of people just because they only because they know the character. They don't actually know who I am really. They don't interact with my
Mm,
artwork or anything.
mm.
Um, but they know who the character is, and they talk to me just because they like the character, and it's weird. I'm not against it, but I'm also
No,
like,
no, no, no. I know exactly how you feel. Uh, you take my chaos piece, right?
yeah, yeah,
How many years went by where people didn't know I made them? Like they knew who they were iconic, but I was irrelevant until recent years when people realized, wait, you made them? I
yeah,
was like, Nandemo?
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Like how? But like I think that's a product of this is gonna sound insulting, but I think it's a product of people just don't read. They don't pay attention. They zone in on one specific thing. It's like a bird looking at a shiny object, and they only see the shininess, and only to realize that they're flying into like barbed wire. Like
It's also just because of the huge disconnect that has happened since the content they used to do like transitioned into its sort of modern era.
you are right, but like this is people who didn't even like watch DoD, like, but we're still in the same community, you know,
Yeah,
and.
because like
I,
everyone didn't really take everything from your series except for the design of the Chaos Beasts, which were a
Yeah,
really cool
and maybe
design.
like yeah, and maybe like some of like the Hell Shadow things, but like yeah,
Yeah,
and that's ultimately too why a lot of it just comes down to design because design not only is something that, you know, are things that I enjoy doing, but like things that are iconic. And that's why like in the regard of you saying what I wanted to add to when you said, yeah, there's a lot of blue wolves, right? But the difference in design with Jinta compared to a lot of others is what yeah ultimately made him unique in a sea of like well the same tint of blue.
yeah,
So like that's ultimately the difference. I mean like you know I actually didn't even realize just how similarly iconic that Shade has, how much power he had, until like you and another friend of ours were kind of like draw more of him. And
Yes.
I've realized now that it's like, yeah, there is more effort to drawing your own OC, because I kind of came from the viewpoint of, if you were looking to get attention, it's better to draw like fan art stuff, right?
Yeah.
And obviously, since I liked to draw girls, I didn't mind drawing a lot of not safe for work anime tatas. But the thing is, like, you realize it's the same C argument, right?
Yeah.
You're one in a million doing the exact same fucking thing. But I mean, hell, even recently drawing some of my other original characters from my other stories, I'm shocked how much attention they're getting compared to other things I've posted, and I'm just like, yeah, maybe your OCs are the way to go. So
Yeah.
like, no matter where you're coming from, what fandom you're doing, what genre you're doing, it's just like it's just having a quote unquote original design or original character. I think it makes people feel like they're getting more content when they're sick of seeing the same stuff over and over, even though they might have enjoyed those things before. They still are always wanting new stuff.
Well, I think it's also when you look at successful content creators that are sort of in the same industry, like they do artwork or they're anitubers or just anything where they're working around being an artist while also
Mm,
creating content. It's just the fact that your character's design needs to stand out.
mm,
There's a few examples in the past that have existed of characters or maybe even art styles that
mm,
didn't land because they were either undeveloped or underdeveloped, um, or they don't have or they suffer from a lot of the similar problems that we were talking at the beginning
mm.
around, creating content that you actually can do without,
Ripping
uh,
your eyeballs out.
yeah, like suffering from the fatigue issues that we were mentioning.
Yep.
Um, but in the case of those that were just underdeveloped, it's like, yeah, you need to. I feel like a good question to ask if you're an artist listening right now and you want to do some kind of content or you want to, you know, have a platform and you're an artist and people know what you're doing already, like people, look at your, online forum. It could be DeviantArt, could be
Yeah, like
Twitter.
basically whatever your portfolio is.
Then it's good that you recognize why do people like your artwork. If you're drawing a lot of your, own character, or you're drawing designs that are yours, what can you do? What is it that draws people to your character? If there is enough that you can feel confident in using that going forward, I fully recommend just, yeah. I think you're in a better position than most people. All that is probably good to look at is cleaning up a lot of your flaws, the stuff that you don't or the things that you think you need to improve on. If you feel like you need to improve as an artist, obviously it's different for other people. It all depends on how confident you are in what you've done, because a lot of people will say just do it, but if you don't feel confident, then you should, you know work on why are you not confident. Is it a personal issue? Do you see flaws in your drawings? Do you see flaws in your personality? If like, sometimes
It
it
can
is
be
a leap of faith, but more often than not, the small issues are just things that you can work on, and just it only takes a small amount of time. Like the time it took for you and me
Mm.
to do this now, it wasn't a month. It was a huge, all of this comes back to the fact that we did a lot of different things to get to this point.
Yeah.
And now that we are at this point, we can say uh, our art styles have improved immensely
Oh
just in the
yeah.
past
Yeah.
year, and
Yeah, I
going
mean,
back.
if I look at some of the stuff that I did just about a year or two ago, like there are some things that I'm like, oh wow, this aged well, and then there's other things I'm like, yeah, I see the difference in
Yeah,
my skill set. I see the difference in my tools. I see the difference in my mindset, and some of that also, for me personally, has to do with the fact that I'm also a lot healthier than I was. I mean, I'm still working out some kinks. This machine does not work as well as it should yet. But like, yeah, when you do work on, like you said, when you do work on whatever your problem is, whatever your flaw is, whatever your issue is, what are your obstacles basically? And when you can take a hard look at yourself and figure out what the obstacle is that's holding you back, whether it's internal or external, the minute you start to really work on that, the things that you want to do and the things you want to progress with your art or anything, any type of content creation and all, gets a lot easier because now the only thing you really have to say is how it's holding you back is your initiative. Do you have that initiative? Do you have that drive and motivation? And I think you'll really see that if you take that time to do a little bit of that self-help and self-care
yeah,
that is required
and
to
be
get to that point.
and also be objective. Like if you think it's a personality problem, be objective about what you can do. Make sure you're not just judging yourself based
Mm,
on what you think others will think of you.
agreed.
Because like yeah, there's a platform for everybody. A lot of the time when we were working on this, we saw people that were doing similar things. Similar like they weren't podcasts. That particularly comes to mind is some YouTubers that we know that do this just with their friends. They just talk on a live stream and they've got their own little community and it's cool. Um, but you know, while we might not, our personality we don't get along with them. Like we just sort of know them. They're not our friends. They're just acquainted through people we know. But their content is very like easy to create, and
Mm,
they're not standout people. They're they're people doing exactly what we're doing. Um, just without sort of like
it's
the
aimless.
artistic talent or any of the they're not doing artwork. They're just going on and talking.
Yeah, it's very aimless, but I think that that's a prime example of like the difference again between doing it for fun and doing it because you consider it your craft, your brand, doing it professionally. And I mean, a good example of that, like when you talked about getting better, right? One of the biggest compliments I got in recent months was my art looks professional. I've had a lot of people tell me that I don't look like a hobbyist.
Yeah.
And that I think is the prime example of what you're talking about. It's like when you look at someone and like, yeah, like maybe they are doing the same thing we're doing, but like, how do you carry yourself? Are you
Mm.
confident about it? And are you showing that your vibe is one of professionalism, or you're showing that your vibe is one of just, yeah, I'm goofing around with my friends and having a fun time. And if that's what you want to do, that's fine. But the thing is, be aware of that. And I think that's what a lot of this whole talking point is. It's like, are you aware? Are you being objective, as you said? Like,
Mm.
and I don't think a lot of people are because I think most people, and this is partly true, but I think most people think that it's just luck based. yeah, it is somewhat luck based. But the other hand is how much work, effort, and time you put in. How seriously do you take what you do? And if you take what you're doing seriously, even if it is fun and entertaining for people to watch, people will come to it more. But if you just seem like another one of the millions of other people out there doing the exact same thing and just thinking, "Oh, wouldn't it be cool if this thing happened?" Yeah, sure it would be, but what would you do with it if it happened? And are you interested in taking it up a notch from where you are to try and make it happen? I'm
Yeah.
not saying it's definitely going to, but do you care enough to try?
Yeah, yeah. And it's if honestly, if you think that if you've thought at least once that you would be entertaining or that maybe you and your friends would be entertaining,
Hmm.
then yeah, work out if it's something that you can do. If it's with a group of people, it's this is probably the last best point to make
I
that we've
actually will want to.
learned.
I will want to add on to this one too because there's something because you did mention this point before, and
Okay.
I did have something to add to it. So I'll let you go ahead for this one.
All right. So the one point that I don't think like the last thing that I can think of that is worth mentioning that we haven't sort of really talked about is the fact that obviously we decided that this would be good because we can do it together. The
Yeah,
reason we can do it together is because we know our habits, our communication, our chemistry. We know what we can talk about, what we can say. We know that a lot of people listen to us. We know that there'll be times that we'll be in group channels and talking to each other, and we'll just dominate the whole conversation just
yeah,
because
pretty
we
much,
just because one thing comes up and then we want to talk about it to the extent that we end up taking a few hours on just one point.
literally.
And that's like so we know it's entertaining because people don't just leave, they actually stay around
Hmm.
for us to usually talk about these subjects.
Yeah,
We know that we have no issues. We've never really had a big issue between what was said to each other. Um
no, yeah, even on our some of our biggest disagreeing points.
yeah, yeah. Like we can disagree about anything and then come back and be like, yo, what's up?
Yeah,
Um
it's because it's more that's where the entertaining part comes in, and it's like we our egos are not so big that we like can't accept that. Yeah, oh no, well you don't think like me, so
and then most importantly, we both understand that this is something of which we have to spend our time together on.
yeah, it's important.
And it may not get any attention. This may be an episode that gets uploaded and will just never grow from this one point that you know, that we leave on. That it's just us and a couple viewers that know us and
Hmm.
we may never grow. But we're willing to take that time investment. We're willing to look ahead at just like we did with Patreon and the live streaming. It took us, a few years of experimentation looking at what we can do, and we're willing to commit another few years experimenting down the line to see what how this is going to turn out.
Yeah, definitely.
And that is something I feel I've struggled to get from other people when it comes to making content is that dedication from other people that you work with, that you want to work with, that because they don't have any idea what kind of commitment it's going to be, or they have other commitments and they don't really take the idea of what you're doing together seriously.
Agreed.
And
Very much agreed.
And yeah, so it's good to note that if you are someone who's thinking, yeah, I love doing this with my friends, and we can totally totally be entertaining together. It's good to keep in mind that they probably have their own lives, and they spend a good portion of it outside of what you're doing together, just either working with other people, maybe with their partners, and you know, when you're doing it for fun, it's sort of it's not the same as trying to do it for content. It's not the same as trying to do it for work. You have to understand that once you start doing it for content, it's going to become a commitment. You're going to want to like make sure that everyone is willing to commit regularly, because otherwise it's just gonna fall through.
Well, like to add to it too, it's kind of like it's like the point you were making, right? Like if you're doing it for fun or doing it seriously, like take like, if you sit down and you decide to say do some streaming. Obviously, there's a pretty big difference versus like if you're doing streaming and you're hanging out with your friends on the stream while you're doing it. It's like that could be entertaining to an extent, but it's probably not going to be something that you will do very long down the line. Like like down the line as you grow more and your content build, if you start taking it seriously, you're probably going to be doing your stream by yourself and engaging with chat. Like that like you're not going to be in call with your friends hanging out on the stream, because that's the point where it is more just fun. It is just silly, and you can afford to do that because you don't need to be paying attention to chat nearly as much as if you have like, I don't know, let's say you have like fucking 40 viewers. Let's say you have 50 viewers and maybe like 20 of them are typing to you in chat and everything. Like you're going to have to be much more focused on that, and thus the people that you're maybe in a call with might be more of a distraction, because the people in chat then aren't going to be able to hear you when you talk and you respond to them, because obviously if they're in your chat, they're there for you. And I think that's a big factor in terms of like, yeah, making the point to other people that I do take this seriously. And I think there will be some people that even if they don't do it and don't take it seriously, there are some people that will definitely understand that. And then there are some people who won't, but those are some people who might not even see what you do as a job, because it's not the 9 to 5. It's not the thing that, you've kind of been taught and conditioned to do is the only way. And regardless of whether you're someone like me who's sometimes feels like they're in a sink or swim situation, regardless of that, it is definitely not the only way. And that's where taking stuff like this more seriously comes in, because it's another option. It's a way out of having to do very stressful, tiring, and even mundane work. And I've done both. Like I know what both feels like. You just have to be willing to not only acknowledge that yourself, but look at other people and hope that they get that too. Some of them will, some of them won't, but I think plenty of people have people in their life, whether they're friends or family or whatever, that it's kind of like that stereotypical thing of like, you've got the naysayers and they'll like discourage doing it.
Yeah.
And then that's when you've got the people who don't support it. And then you've got the person trying to create it and trying to do it. That's also where a lot of the discouragement comes in. So yeah, just keep that in mind, no matter who the people are in your life. And those people will always be important to you and you'll always have them around. But if they don't understand what you're doing and they don't accept what you're doing, and they take that as a means to, like maybe remove you from their life, then it's unfortunate, but you have to be prepared for the fact that if people are willing to do that, how much were they there for you to support you and be your friend, your confidant, your family, whatever, versus just wanting to monopolize your time.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what you have to see the difference between. And this is not meant to target anybody. This is not meant to make you look at your family or friends and be like, but it's just something to keep in mind if you are taking this seriously as you progress. The more time you put into this, the less time you might have for other people, at least at first. It will only be once you reach a point of reasonable success that you do start having more time to do it and be with those you care about, because it's become passive at that point.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately the goal you're trying to reach. You're trying to reach passivity. And
And
until you reach that, yeah,
and that's exactly what this is. Ultimately, you and I can do this passively and create content because we do this already.
hmm
And we're not all that like successful, but we're still committing a lot of time, and
hmm
now we can do a lot more than we used to. Like no shit. I've been through the busiest period this year,
hmm
and the fact is I still get a lot of free time. Um and I'm big on free time. Like I don't like
oh
being
yeah,
kept to a schedule. I
same.
I hate it. I do not work with schedules well. And yet I don't feel like I'm committed to any real big schedule. Not because I don't lose a lot of my free time. I definitely there are times where I will just work through a whole week and I haven't had time to myself. But I have a lot of small points through the week that are my support in order to keep doing what I'm doing.
Agreed.
But situations are different. We're very lucky to be able to do this right now.
Yeah, I will admit, in my case, I'm privileged enough that despite how bad my health issues are, I have very good parents. Like, if I did not have the kind of parents I did, I probably would be dead.
Yeah,
With
yeah.
like, if I'm being fucking straight with my health issues and
Hmm.
the things I've had to do and my inability to work right now, and still not really qualifying for disability because what I have isn't considered bad enough. And and any of you watching, if you live in America, you know what I'm talking about. You know what the healthcare system and things are like. It's hard for us out here. It's not a people have a lot of financial struggles, and if you have medical issues, like, yeah, those things do make it more difficult. So yeah, I definitely understand, to add to Scott's point here, like, yeah, it just comes down to it does become difficult to manage, but it it's not impossible with the right type of scheduling. Ironic, considering we said we don't
Yeah.
like being stuck to a specific
And
schedule, but it's like it's more about making your own schedule.
it's
You
it's
know,
it's about committing to the smallest degree and then like working your way within your comfort. Um,
yeah. Actually, to add to that, like, much how I've made the point a lot about my physical stuff, but, like, for those of you who maybe don't have physical, and maybe you have those mental health struggles, right? It's like they tell you a small little victory, so small steps each day will make up to the big picture. It's like, yeah, maybe if the only thing you did that day was you got up and you made your bed, maybe that's the fucking only thing you did that day. But you know what? That still matters. It's a small step. So,
and
like,
and
you know,
I and to add to this,
mm,
I'm someone that has gone through therapy and
mm,
come out
same.
the other side.
Mm,
I found it useless to me when I was a teenager, but
mm,
around my early 20s, I had to go back through it, and I cannot recommend it more. Talking to therapists, talking to psychologists, and if you live in America, it's not going to be cheap, obviously.
right. Yep.
Um, but it is if you can work out something, it is so worth it. Living with your mental struggles is not worth with your mental illness is not worth it. It's just not. You are so much more productive when you've sorted all of the clutter and fog that you
Yeah.
live with.
There is a recommendation I can give to those who might not have had access to therapy. The thing that I would recommend, um find whatever not only your coping mechanisms are, but find a support system. Like, I can safely say that I did do therapy and it helped me for a little while, but after a while I found it to be more upsetting than useful. And even though I was in it for like about 7 months, um, I have pretty bad anxiety, but I don't feel like I suffer from clinical depression. Everybody gets depressed once in a while. I'm more that kind of person. I'm not in that camp. So I'm saying if you are in that camp, even from my experience and even from having a lot of close people who are close to me, family members, friends, one of the best things you can do is surround yourself with some people or at least one person who will listen to you and provide you with some sense of safety. I can say that I primarily talk to my mother, but I also have some very good friends that I'm very thankful for. And I had gone through a lot of periods in my life where I had lost a lot of groups of friends to get me to this point, and I'm 32 now. I've been through a lot of change as far as my social groups go. So like, yeah, if you have at least one person to talk to, one good friend that you trust at least, because yeah, sometimes people don't have family or a family member, anybody, talk to that person. Let them be someone you can lean on in those moments, and vice versa. That mutual support from each other will be almost as beneficial as if you could actually speak to a therapist. The important thing is that you recognize, though, that you are supporting each other. You are not codependent. Don't let it slip into that. As long as you don't slip into that, it helps to have at least one person around you that will just listen and be your friend.
Yeah. The situation may change, but like me and Shade will never be so codependent that we can't make content on our own. We can easily
Agreed.
be doing what we're doing right now, just on our own. If it's so much, yes, it's easier to do it together,
Yeah.
but it's not. It's not. There is no. It's not like there isn't a workaround. And like, yeah, the important thing is though that yeah, you just have people that support you.
Yeah. Because, like, in our case, like, I mean, I can say we probably spend a little less time together now than we used to. Like, we still touch base with each other at least a few times a week.
I feel like that
We
will change. I feel like it has really been the circumstances of 2023 that
Yeah.
have
Oh,
forced
bro, this
that.
year's been terrible. I hate this year. I
It's weird,
fucking
right? Because
hate.
I like this year, but I also am like, damn,
Burn it to the ground. Burn it to the ground.
it's been a memorable year.
Oh, trust me, I'll never forget it. Even when I wish I could. But like, no, I agree with that point. But like, yeah, to add to it is like the point that like what keeps me motivated and helps me, um, is that even when I'm not around you and working with you,
Mm,
or even around other people, I I am someone that while I am still fairly confident in the work I produce, I often like to have someone to run things by. Now, obviously, you are one of the first people I run things by, but like hell, a few days ago, I spoke with another friend of ours and asked her, "What do you think of this?" And there wasn't really much I had to adjust with the thing I was drawing, but I still wanted a second pair of eyes.
yeah,
And looking at what I drew, I felt like I feel like I did this correct, but I still want someone else who I trust and I feel knows what they're doing and is also confident, because it
yeah,
doesn't matter how confident I am in something I drew. If there will always be some pieces I make that I want that support system for. It's like
yeah,
that. It's that little bit of reassurance and confidence boost. And yeah, like it's helpful to know that you didn't, you didn't fuck up, or maybe you saw something that you did. But the thing is, like, yeah, ultimately, even if it took me an extra day to work on the piece I was working on, I probably would still find the flaw I made. But it is more beneficial, I think, to work in that kind of community. It's why you'll even see a lot of artists who will be like, yeah, hey, join our Discord server. We all interact. We critique each other. Like I think unless you've hit the point where you're so successful that you don't even care if there might be some issues or something with a drawing here or there,
Yeah,
because it
yeah,
won't matter at that point, because the masses looking at you still love your work. And even if there is just some minor errors, because I think there's always going to be some minor errors, and you think even the artist themselves may recognize that, you won't care once you've hit that point. But I think while you're growing and you have that community and you're growing together, that's where the support system comes in, where you I'll say this, right? I got a good example. Codependency is holding each other's hand. Support is helping each other up when you tripped. Because we're all going to trip here every once in a while.
yeah.
But like having someone there to help you up when you tripped, it's nice. You don't need it, but it's helpful.
It
And
is.
if you need to hold someone's hand, that's when you need to look at yourself and say, is this a community? Is this a support system? Are these friends? Or am I just that struggling that much that I feel I can't do anything without it? And I think that's the separation. That was a bit of a tangent, I
No, but it
recognize.
was actually really good. I do agree. You don't want to be using other people as crutches, and if you are using people as crutches, if you can't continue to sort of like, if the help that you're getting, that you believe you're getting, is whether or not it's whether or not it's helping, is it a cause of fatigue to work without it? That is a good question to be asking in the situation where you're getting a lot of help, but you're also relying on it to be either progressing, continuing what you're doing. That's a very good tangent. I wouldn't have brought it up otherwise if you didn't. So I'm glad we talked about it.
Yeah, and I agree with that as well. Is it a source of fatigue or not? Because I will say this as probably a last point for this part, I would say. I'm 50-50 because I feel like I'm a very mood-based person, especially with my art. And I feel like a lot of artists are very emotional. We're very passionate.
Mm,
It's where we pull our creativity from, I think. So as a result of that, there are periods where I kind of isolate a bit. And I'll do it not because I'm like depressed or something. I'll do it because I need some time to focus on what I'm working on and what I'm creating without everyone around me to be a distraction.
yeah.
And then there are times where if I am feeling lonely and I haven't had social interaction for a few days, I'm like, you know what? I feel I'd be more productive if I had people around to talk to while I worked. So I definitely feel like it's a 50-50, at least for me
Yeah.
personally, because
Yeah.
it's just based on the mood.
No, yeah, no. I'm someone that is also about making sure that my motivation is there, and usually it is about just making sure that I am in the mood. And the best thing that you can do in those situations is don't distract yourself. Like like we work with very minimal distractions, and we're looking all the time to be even less distracted than we are.
Yeah, agreed.
So yeah, that's a very other good point that we haven't brought up yet. But I think we've covered pretty much the basics and above and beyond.
Oh yeah,
If
I mean, you know me. Give me one topic, and next thing you know, I'll turn it into 3 hours.
exactly, and that's why we're doing this, man. If you took something away from this, or if this resonated, do give it a like. Like, we want to be able to do this a lot more.
Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and ring the bell.
Ring that bell there. That's my terrible American accent.
Yeah, we're all from the South. We're literally
Yeah, you can't.
all from the
You
South.
can't even say America because America has like 59 different accents.
Yeah, exactly. If you get, it's funny though, right? Like that's the thing. I would probably boil it down to, okay, like aside from like New York, because like New York definitely has like a shit ton of accents, and as someone who was formerly from Brooklyn,
Yeah,
like I can say the accents I feel can be boiled down to you have Northerner, Midwest, Southerner, um, and then after that there's the generic American accent, which is kind of it's kind of like the accent that like say like think like maybe like if, like someone like Christian Bale, right, who's naturally British,
yeah,
and puts on the American accent. You know how it sounds like that plain generic tone. That would be the fourth accent. After that, there's literally a few specific states that have their own unique accent, but I feel like it's less than 10
yeah,
if
yeah.
I really were to. Hell, that would actually be a funny conversation one
Maybe,
day.
maybe might have
That
to
that might
do
be
an
funny.
episode on it actually because I would
Yeah,
be
like
interested.
just yeah,
Especially
because like just to go through with the dialects, it would be kind of funny.
yeah, yeah, and also like I've got a lot that I could talk about in terms of like Australian accents.
Yeah, I agree
And
with that actually. New Zealand too. Like there's like especially because like people from especially from America, they hear you talk, right? And the
yeah,
first thing they think is,
is
are
that
you
I'm Australian?
Australian or are you British? Like Australian, British, and New Zealand all get lumped together.
Yeah,
Like the minute you speak to like someone from like America or a much further Western country, something, it's just anything on the opposite side of the planet from you, they're just playing a guessing game between those three accents because
yeah,
they have no idea. Even I had a hard time at first until I hit like my mid-teens when I started talking to some other people from New Zealand and stuff. So like I'm reasonably ahead of the curve, and even I get confused.
yeah. There are phrases and tonations that are very that make it a lot easier to tell. I believe, but
Mhm.
yeah, yeah. That'll be a conversation for another time.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. As I said, if you like this video, please give it a like, and look forward to more content in the future. And also, if you want to check out our artwork, we both have a Patreon. You can subscribe if you like.
hmm We follow us on our Twitter. You can follow Scott. I believe you're Jinta the Wolf, right? Or Jinta
Yeah,
TF,
yeah,
is it?
yeah.
Um,
I'll put the link in the description. Also,
mhm.
I'd like to take a moment to also give a shout out to another artist.
Mm,
We'd like to
mm,
do this segment at the very end for the people that have made it all the way through.
mhm.
Please please go and have a look at Tina Stargazer on Twitter. They're
Yeah, yeah. She's an amazing artist. For those of you watching this, you'll see it in post, but she did the logo animation, the title card for our podcast here. Absolutely amazing artist. She can do so many great things, and is actually one of the other artists that I very much value the opinion of. And I would say too, like going forward, like aside from like checking out our Twitter links, checking out our Patreons and all that, which we'll have below, if there's anything that you as a viewer would like to hear us talk about, be sure to comment below. And depending on, maybe how many likes the video gets or how much attention a certain comment gets, we probably will talk about a topic that you guys want us to. So keep that in mind as well. If there are things that you want to hear about from us and you enjoy listening to our fucking tangents and ramblings, we'll be happy to take a look through and see what you want us to talk about.
Yeah, we'll most likely be talking about like video games and anime in the future somewhere. We did do a test episode. We'll see if that gets released. Uh,
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit wonky due to our microphone settings. Like even getting to this point was a bit of work, and I'll be straight with you. One thing I'll say, I have COPD. It's hard for me sometimes to speak up as well as I do, but yeah. Um, but the thing is, like, yeah, I mean, like it is primarily going to be a lot of like, yeah, nerd culture, if you will. But me and Scott tend to get pretty deep, as you can see. So like,
yeah, we talk
it's
about a
it's kind
lot
of
of
a
things,
circle.
and
Yeah, it's kind of a circle, honestly.
It's yeah. We'll probably you'll probably hear us talk about other things that just have nothing to do with the regular in the future. So yeah. Stick around for it.
Mhm.
Let us know what you want us to talk about. Well, we do want to see what you guys want to hear from us.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, with that, take it easy, gang. We will see you later.
All right. Caw, motherfuckers.